Hello everybody, my name is Jack Sullivan and I'm going to be walking you today through my project Fruit Fighter. So this game currently is about basically Fruit Ninja where you can have fruit items spawn in, prefabs shoot at you, and you cut them up with a sword, and the slicing mechanic works as well. Basically my original project goals, this fell a little bit short of that, um, where I had originally planned on having some kind of shooting mechanic where there is going to be some kind of enemies maybe or something, etc. And just fell a little short of that just due to time constraints and the actual difficulty of even getting this far. But I'm very proud to say that I've gotten the slicing mechanics working and I made sure that that whole aspect is working. So I will show you a little bit of that video right now.
All right, so as we can see, here I have my two swords, which are a part of a pack that I downloaded off the asset store. We can see around here that we have the generated environment, and you can see that if I slice these objects, I'm actually able to cut them up. Although it doesn't work perfectly every time, you can usually get this. So the cool thing about this is that it gets the two halves to move apart from each other every time that an object gets sliced. Actually, on a pretty good streak here. But yeah, so they always spawn in, and funny enough, I somehow got it so they just about always hit my head. But you can see, although there's no scoring system, this is pretty close to what I had envisioned for this project. Um, and yeah, and so the objects will spawn in basically unlimited times, and as soon as they hit the ground, if they haven't been cut, then they're gone right away. Otherwise, the slice pieces here, as you can see, kind of hang around for a little bit.
Going to go through a little bit more of the back end side of what's going on here, right? So here we have our OVR camera rig, which comes with the Steam VR plugins, and we have our two katanas here. Now our katanas are basically what's going to make way for the actual slicing action itself. When we look at this, we can see this thin plane, which is actually what is being used to calculate the cuts on the fruit themselves. So now we use our katana here, and we use a box collider to actually choose when it happens, right? So if we have a collision happen somewhere with this box collider, it uses the slicer in order to calculate where the object should be sliced, and then creates two objects on either side of that slice, which is what you can see in that slicing example when the objects get cut in half. So walking through a little bit into the code side of it, so we have a slicer, which actually is what that plane is that decides the slice itself. The sliceable, which is applied to each of the objects to make them be cut. And then we have a slice listener, essentially, and that's about it. A slice listener goes in the katana itself and the box collider itself to kind of communicate between them. So here we can talk about one of the other things that was very challenging for me to tackle, and that was the actual spawning itself. Now I have this spawner here, which basically gives a point of reference for the object to spawn off of. And so what it does, it determines basically a radius that we can spawn off of, and then kind of creates a rim on the outside of that. Now when we do that, we basically can choose our power settings, our theta settings, and our theta is basically being, like I mentioned, drawing a line straight out from here, and the theta is going to be angle on either side, kind of a mirrored image of how far they can, spawn apart. And so if we take a look at this from the top view, we can actually see that the objects spawn in a circle, a rough circle. I understand it's a little hard to do that. And yes, all this is very simple. This was actually rather complex in actually putting together. So when we do here, we basically have to create a random spawn location along that rim, which we use polar coordinates in order to find. We basically have a spawn tracker, which is going to keep track of all the timing that it takes for in between each time it should spawn. Right now it's set at about a half second, so every half second it spawns a new object. And each of these objects are basically what's going to be put into play. Now we get these objects from an object pool. Now, this object pool is another class here that we can take a look at, and so basically what it does is it creates like an endless queue of objects that are going to be constantly, spawned. So it's like, hey, you got 10 elements, and every time that one of them gets hit or hits the ground or gets sliced, etc., it gets deactivated and then pushed back into this pool, and then so it just pulls from that. So we don't basically create any more than these 10 objects. Now, one of the things you'll notice here is that these objects are actually moving very slow, and here we can see this, object queue going on. But we can see that these objects are moving a little slow, and now that one was a very interesting one to tackle. And so basically what this actually does inside here is that we are slowing down time for all of the rest of the objects. After doing this, it allows it to, actually be handled properly. And yeah, it makes it actually, more playable and actually doable in that sense. About how much of the goals I think that were met here, I think that I'm really proud of honestly how well this ended up working out, just because it really fluidly and actually works as True Ninja. Unfortunately, like I said, I was unable to complete the extra, shooting targets and stuff like that, but I think at that point I was just basically biting off a little bit more than I could chew, just because it's getting to this point, figuring out how to do all this stuff, and starting from not knowing anything from Unity. I'm actually very proud of what I was able to do here. I'd say definitely one of the biggest challenges was learning how to do the spawner, because I had to learn about the object queue, I had to learn about slowing down time, how I had to learn about how to create instantiate new objects and with an initial velocity. I had to figure out a way in order to calculate these objects in order for them to constantly, as you can see here, like shoot at your head every time you do that. I mean, it was just a lot of figuring out along those lines. But I think that those were one of the coolest things. And I'd say also a big thing was learning how to actually use this easy slice. And I had to do a lot of research and stuff like that and learn how to actually apply that to my, camera rig and put it on the swords itself and actually, figure out how to slice those meshes, etc. I think those were some of the biggest things that I, did in this project. And I would say if I had more time to work on this project, I think I would definitely add in a scoring system, just because it's kind of just survival mode right now. It's just a little zen mode, fruit slicing with no end sight. But I think I'd add a scoring system, a way to go ahead and make sure that we can keep track of those objects, make sure if you keep track if you miss them, etc. And maybe work on some more of those things I was talking about, maybe adding like, being able to shoot the objects or something like that would be pretty cool. But, for the time is, I'm very proud of it. And so one of the things I would like to point out is from the asset store, I imported this low poly fruits. I downloaded a simple free katana set from the asset store as well. And then Easy Slice. The Easy Slice framework was basically what I used to, come up with these hulls and basically come up with like, I'm sorry, I'm not taking credit for that at all. It's what I used in order to, make this work, and that can be found just by looking up Easy Slice on GitHub and, downloading the repository. Thanks for taking the time to listen to my video, and I hope that you enjoy it, and hopefully you get the chance to try this project as well.